Hi, welcome back to Milk and Minds, Cultivating Excellence in Indiana Classroom. This is a series I am so excited about. I am Marty Hoofer, Digital Content Manager for Keep Indiana Learning, and I am thrilled to be able to be a part of these panel discussions and get to talk to some fantastic educators from across the state of Indiana. So let's get started. We're going to start with some introductions. Ashley, I'll start with you. Can you tell us who you are, where you teach, when you won your award, all those good things?
Absolutely. My name is Ashley Johnson, and I teach at DeKalb High School in Waterloo. I'm a business teacher, and I got my Milken Award in 2024.
2024. All right. Daphne, what about you?
Hi, I'm Daphne Draa. I joined the Milken family in 2005, and I teach currently at the Center for Inquiry, which is part of IPS. And I've been there for 25 years now. And I've changed positions. I started as an art teacher, and now I'm a first grade teacher. And I've just really loved that extended journey that I've been on there at CFI.
Oh, I love that. And Daphne, you teaching first graders. Ashley, you're teaching big kids about ready to go stretch their wings. I love the variety we have here. And Sarah, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, I'm Sarah Powley. I got the Milken Award in 1993, and I retired from the classroom just very recently. But I spent most of my adult life in McCutcheon High School, which is in Lafayette, and I was an English teacher. But for the last 10 years, I was an instructional coach for secondary teachers. That means 6 through 12 in my district.
Love that. Well, thank you guys for being here today. Let me just fill our audience in, give them a little bit of background. A Milken educator is a top performing teacher, principal, or education professional who has been recognized for excellence in education and leadership. Selected through a confidential process, Milken educators receive the prestigious Milken Educator Award, often called the Oscars of teaching, for their innovation, dedication, and ability to inspire students and colleagues alike. Hence your being here today and being a part of this panel discussion. They become a part of a national network of change makers committed to shaping the future of education. And the Indiana Milken Network is coming together with a mission to connect, inspire, and sustain Indiana educators, which fits so beautifully with what Keep Indiana looks to do as well. So we are so thankful to have you as a part of our network as well. So this episode today, Management for Student Success, we're going to dive into effective classroom management, topic 101 for every teacher, and discipline techniques that build a foundation for student success. Teachers, these ladies are going to share practical strategies for creating an organized, respectful, and focused learning environment where positive behavior is nurtured and, most importantly, learning can thrive. So I want to start with a question that's going to go to all three of you, and we'll just go in the order that you introduced yourself. I use the phrase ideal learning space. That is a really broad term. So what does that mean to you, and how do you connect it to student success? So Ashley, let you take it away.
Well, I think most people, when you say ideal learning space, they're going to think of the actual physical classroom, which is very important, but it also is going to be like it's the feel of the classroom. Like, how do the students feel when they're in there? Do they have a good relationship with you as the teacher? How do they feel about their peers? So it's building the relationships within that classroom so the student feels safe and comfortable to be who they are and to try new things.
I love that. Daphne.
Well, one of my really favorite educational theorists is Alfie Cohen. He's written over 14 books and lectures about human behavior, education, parenting. And one of his books, two of his books that really changed me, but one that I'll talk of here, Community Over Compliance. So he really delves into this ideal learning space as a progressive classroom that's collaborative and student-centered, where learning is really organized around projects and questions rather than regurgitating information. There's cooperative learning in small groups, teacher-student dynamics, going on. But through this, most importantly, is this deep sense of community. where students are encouraged and supported to take the risks and to do that hard work of learning without the pressure of grades, which, hard one. But I feel like when we understand that all these kids go through so many emotional variety responses throughout the day, and their nervous system and all the stimuli that's going on, we can only really get to learning when we feel safe. So developing this room and this relationship, as Ashley said, where people feel the safety and the unconditional love, then they are able to flourish and grow.
Wow. Oh, so very well said. So many comments I can make there, but I'm not. Sarah, what do you want to say about all of those things?
I want to second what both of these teachers have said. I mean, seriously, this is exactly right. Relationships are at the heart of it. Relationships among the kids, with the kids, the teacher to the kid individually, kids to kids. Relationships are at the heart of it. But in an ideal learning space, that will have been established so that students are comfortable and they're totally at ease with each other and with you. They know what to expect. And that has to do a lot with you as the teacher. Yes. They know that you are in charge and you have a plan, and you will provide for them, take care of them, see that they're able to achieve whatever it is that you want them to achieve. So you have expectations for them. You've communicated those expectations to them. They know what they're supposed to do.
Well, and all three of you said the word community, and I don't think I had thought about that as part of the ideal learning space. But then when I think about my own classroom that I spent 12 years in, that's absolutely what it was. And it was a place that the kids knew what to expect. And that allows them to thrive, because we all do better when we know what the expectations are. So, what a great kickoff to this conversation. Sarah, well, let me back up before I get to my question. Classroom management. It's what everybody wants to talk about and nobody wants to talk about, because it's not a fun topic. There is no one answer, because every human being is different every single day. It's what makes us so much fun. Why is classroom management such a critical piece of this positive learning environment?
Well, it's funny. They're each important to the other. It's I could reverse that and say, why is a positive learning environment so important for classroom management? Because they absolutely work hand in hand. I think there's an education guru named John Hattie who writes about teacher clarity. And what he's saying, he says that is the single most important thing, is that the teacher is clear about how we treat one another, about how we behave in the classroom, about what the learning expectations are. You have to have a plan. You have to know, be confident in what you're doing, and communicate that plan to the kids, and then support them and help them to do the right thing. So it's all tied together.
Yes. Ashley or Daphne, you want to add anything to that?
Helping anyone learn anything it's such a challenging role to be a good coach, to know when to nudge, to know when to step back. There's this give and take that Sarah's speaking to. And to also keep in mind for young educators or just folks out there that are thinking about this, most people deal on a 3-to-1 ratio. So if you get a constructive piece of feedback, I would say negative feedback because I'm a little sensitive, but we'll say constructive, then you're going to need to rebuild me with 3 positive pieces of feedback so that we can then get back to that equal relationship where I feel safe with you. Most people work on a 3-to-1. They can take a little bit of coaching and then a little rebuild. people, some people like, a lot of people on different ranges go even up to 5-to-1. But then there's also like first graders, they're almost like a 1-to-1. They're so quick to like take in feedback that they can respond and rebound pretty quickly. So kind of understanding those human developmental stages and how you give those coaching techniques and feedback, so that you can keep that positive relationship. Because too much negative feedback, somebody's going to fight, fright, or freeze. Is going to happen.
Well, and like Ashley said to begin us off, it goes back to that relationship and knowing those students and when to push, when to hold back, how to push. Yes. So Ashley, let me come back to something else you said at the beginning. What role does physical space, whether it's seating arrangements, organization, lighting, posters on the wall, pick your physical thing. What part do you think that plays in student engagement and behavior? And your answer might be different talking to seniors than Daphne's with first graders, but in general, what are your thoughts on physical space?
Absolutely. It's just like for high school too, and especially with what I do in my business classes, the seating arrangement is huge depending on what we're doing that day. Like if I am wanting them to, listen to me for instruction for the majority of the time, then I'm going to want those chairs and desks facing the front, probably in some kind of row. Today we did a lot of group work, so I clustered them into groups. If we want to have class discussions, we might put them into circles. But also having spaces within the classroom where students know that like that is their space and they can go and they can use it if they need to. Like I have my, my maker space corner where there's all kinds of different materials. There's pencils, there's highlighters, there's pens, there's index cards. If they need something to complete whatever it is they need, they know that they're allowed to go over there. They don't have to ask me.
Yeah. I had that same space in my classroom and I used to tell them, this is yours. I don't need to walk over here and get a Kleenex. I have those at my own desk. This is your space, your pencil sharpener, your things. I really don't care what's here. Yeah, absolutely. And Ashley, also, you were talking about the seating arrangement. That sets the expectation. When they walk in, they then know, oh, this is what today's going to hold just by the way the chairs are sitting. Either of you, Sarah or Daphne, want to add anything there?
Well, I'll jump in and say that, I had a method of actually getting the kids themselves to rearrange the room. It was, I didn't have the luxury of the nice tables and the rolling chairs that we now have in the beginning. And so when I'm an English teacher, it was a discussion period. You don't have discussions in rows very well. You're talking to the backs of people's heads. So I needed to get those chairs into almost a circle, but more of a U.
Yeah.
And 2 rows of them. And then I would sit not in the center, but at the top of the U rather than stand like I'm the imposing thing. I was down on their level. Nice. But what I would do is ask the kids to change the chairs up themselves. But that sounds like a recipe for chaos, except that we would practice it and we would do it to a timer and see how fast they could do it. And of course that became a challenge. Sure. And then they knew it's test day. Okay, I've got to put it in rows, or today we're doing small discussion groups. We're going to put these in little pods. Now later that was much easier because I got better desk equipment, but in the beginning that was how it was done. But yes, the seating sets the tone.
Right. And it's such a simple thing.
Yeah, to piggyback off of Sarah with that too, like if I'm having one-on-ones with students, either individually or in group, like I go to them. I go and sit in a desk with them. I don't have them come up to my desk because then it's kind of like they feel like they're in trouble. So moving to them and on their level.
Yes. I used to have a stool that I carried around my classroom so I could just sit with them, whoever the them was that I needed to sit by for whatever reason. I just carried around a stool because I learned I couldn't squat for as long as I needed to. So Daphne, how do you balance, especially thinking about first graders, structure and flexibility? Because I taught middle school. I think that first graders need a lot of structure, but I'm sure in reality they need some flexibility. So how do you balance those when thinking about classroom management?
That's a great question. And, to being an art teacher in my early career, I taught K-8. So I had this really great, great exposure to a lot of the developmental stages. And I've really found that, humans, they do thrive in those predictable environments. So consistency and practice logistical routines and those academic schedules really help. But within those structured blocks, there's so much room for flexibility and student choice. So no matter the grade, and I would say adults, especially if you have to lead faculty meeting or if you teach, at college level, this to be true. The more choice we have, the more invested we feel, and any choice is some choice. So I have found a lot of leverage in this or that. Just two things. For example, we need to finish our written response and do a spelling check. Which one do you want to do first? So even like mundane choices of this and that throughout the day is a shared power technique. And the more you do it, the more natural it becomes. What song would you like to hear while we clean up? This or that. You don't give like all the choices. I think people fall into this trap thinking that they have, in order to give student choice and voice, they have to just turn over like everything. But we can give a choice of this or that. It still gives us that feeling that we are making choices and we have some say and control in our environment. So this is kind of a pro tip with this. We do a basic thumbs up, thumbs down, but then I pull a stick out of a jar that has either a less than or a greater than some symbol on it. And that's the vote that wins. So if it's the greater than, it's the more votes. If it's the less than, it's the lesser votes. This helps make them take their own voice instead of being persuaded or try to persuade others. Plus, I freaking love math. So anytime I math out, any chance I have to math out, I go all in. So there are like many routines in my day that are just me being a math nerd.
Oh my gosh, I love that. And talk about like voter disenfranchisement. Now we're not disenfranchising anybody because you don't know which way this stick pull is going to go today or in this moment. And oh my gosh, Daphne, that is brilliant. So simple and so brilliant. And Ashley's thinking, I'm going to start using that. I got that tomorrow.
It really takes the power structure away. And it really does say that not always, majority doesn't always win.
No,
it doesn't. No. It really doesn't. And in an informed democracy, majority cannot always win.
Right.
Minority has to have voice and choice sometimes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I love that. Sarah, let me ask you. Daphne kind of got us started on this, but what strategies help maintain consistent management? Hers right there, that this or that's a strategy that is super simple. You're using a strategy with moving chairs where you practice it, and that's a strategy. But what are some strategies that help maintain consistency in that management while still being responsive to those individual needs and wants that are in every single classroom?
Sure. Well, I think you need to start back at the very beginning. I don't know about your schools, but at my school, you had to make a list of all your classroom rules and what the punishments were that went with them. And I really rebelled against that because, when you say, I was a good girl. I was compliant. I filled it out. I turned it in. But when I approached the kids, I played it all differently. And I would say, look, instead of using the word rules, I said, here are the expectations.
Yeah.
And let's talk about what they are, what they mean, how you demonstrate that expectation. And most kids were very happy with that because what are rules for? Well, we all know they're to be broken. So all of a sudden it was an expectation and they could meet it. And also when there was a kid who was, and in high school, this could most certainly happen, but I imagine it can happen in first grade too, where you had a kid who was non-compliant and didn't want to meet the expectation, then you can deal with that child individually. That, what is it about this you don't understand? How can I help you? And not involve the whole class in, oh, this rule breaking has happened. So that's one thing that I think is really important, is that right from the beginning to set expectations, not rules. And then secondly, another thing is a lot of times teachers get flummoxed by simple things like passing in papers. It can be chaos. Well, how about if we practice doing it? And here's a system. How about this? Occasionally a kid will come up with a better idea. But, if you have if you're in rows, the back person hands it to the person in front, who collects them to the next person, and then you, the teacher, sweep across the front and pick them up. That seems so simple, but how many classrooms have you been in where that's not what happens? And it's here, 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 and the teacher's running all over collecting them. So it's like, let's find a quick and simple method of getting through this housekeeping kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And let's practice it to make sure we've got that down, just like moving the chairs. And once we do, if we have to revisit, we can revisit. But, it does a lot to get a lot of the uninteresting stuff out of the way and get to the heart of the real lesson, where you can actually turn to the kids and find out what's in those little creative heads.
Right. Because who wants to spend time passing out papers or picking up papers or doing those things?
Yeah.
That's not fun. That's not why any of us became educators, to pass out papers.
That's correct.
Although you do feel like you spend far too much of your life.
Far too much of your time with those papers, but
Hey, absolutely. Ashley or Daphne, you want to add anything of those strategies? But Sarah, you're right. It's thinking through those household type tasks. How are we going to do them efficiently? But Ashley, Daphne, you want to add anything there?
Yeah, with her expectations too, we call them values in my classroom, and the kids come up with the values that we're doing. So that way, if something happens that's not necessarily meeting one of them, I'm like, is that meeting our values? And then of course, I always put at the bottom, I have one value that I always add to every classroom, and that is, we do not do anything to embarrass Mrs. Johnson.
That's a solid value, Ashley. That's solid. And Daphne, did you want to add something?
Yeah, we call them agreements. So I think, when you think about what these three educators are saying is shared power. How do we get everyone to feel that this is not my classroom, this is our classroom? I'm so careful with pronouns for many reasons, but that one particularly, it's our classroom, it's room 4, it's a space in which I am, habitate, but it's our space.
Yeah. And all of that goes right back to that idea of community and safe space, that we're all here together to learn. And I'm going to learn right alongside you. I'm learning probably something different than you are, but I'm learning right along beside you. All right, 2 more questions. Daphne, I'm going to throw this one to you first, and then we'll do a wrap-up question for everybody. Last one. What adjustments might be needed for students with diverse learning or behavior or emotional needs?
All right. Well, this is something that could be its whole podcast, but I'm just going to say beyond, let's just say something that's touching everyone right now, which is trauma-informed teaching. It's not just for teachers that are in some sort of historically deemed challenging area. Unfortunately, the grip of trauma and how it affects our brain is not contained to certain populations. There has been so much research done. I want to give big shout out to Dr. Lori at Butler University, Dr. Lori Dashiell, really doing some groundbreaking work and publishing some really accessible books. And understanding that the brain holds on, has history, is a living organ that can reconstruct itself if it learns how to regulate. And the only way we do that is through co-regulation. We've all been there, you guys. You walk into a space and you're like, ooh, somebody's grumpy today. Ooh, faculty meeting. And you're like, ooh, who's mad? Or you walk in a space where everyone is just vibing and you're like, this is so cool. Like this podcast right now, right? It's comfortable. We all feel safe. We're connecting intellectually. Children sense that in adults. They sense that in their teachers. If you are not calm and loving and really radiating that, then you cannot plant the flourishing soil that students need in order to make the leap of learning.
Oh, yes. All right. Well, we are rapidly running out of time, so I'm going to get to our last question. We'll do this in the same order we did intro. So, Ashley, you're going to be on the hot seat first. If you had to share just one, I know this is such a hard question too, one high impact classroom management strategy that every teacher should know, what would it be?
I think it goes along the lines of just make your classroom inviting and like a fun place to be. Like think about yourself, like maybe in a professional development situation or in a faculty meeting, and like feel like what is the vibe of that? Like what is right? Do you like it? And you need to make something that the students like, because like we've been saying before, like relationships are the key to all of this. If you have really great relationships with your students, it doesn't mean that they're not going to occasionally, have bad behaviors, but it is going to make you addressing those bad behaviors so much easier, and you're going to get over them so much quicker.
Yes. All right, Daphne, what's your one tip?
All right, well, we've talked a lot about the students, educators, theorists, but we haven't talked about the fourth wheel of the wagon, our families. So my big pro tip is share as much positive news as possible. Find as many ways to shout out the good news, minimize the negative as much as possible. Parenting is hard. They're trusting us with their kid. They're trusting we're going to like their kid, that we're going to teach their kid, keep their kids safe. That's a lot to be trusted with. But we have to be cognizant of how hard it is to parent. Yeah. And so I feel I do a couple of different things. I have a punk you're a parent sort of phone call where I call with this, like, I have some behaviors to talk about with you. And then we kind of like play a little trick and cheer, that's fun. We craft text messages during our closing circle each day as a class, and we send them to every parent about at least 3 great things that happened during our day. So I think that the parents deserve to know that we love their kids, and the only way to do that is to just share the good news.
Oh, I love that idea of collectively crafting that text. And because then it's in the kids' brains as they go home, and that's the things they can share as well. So, I love that for so many reasons. All right, Sarah, what's your great strategy you want to share?
Oh my gosh. Well, I don't know if I can confine myself to just one, but here's a simple one. Okay. When something has gone wrong with a particular student,
yep,
and that student needs to be, in the old-fashioned term, disciplined. Yeah. Do it privately.
Yes.
Do not do it in front of the other kids. Nope. Every kid wants to be seen, but not seen like that, even if they're deliberately doing it. Yep. And so if you, like, suppose they're acting up and they're interacting with somebody else in the classroom, the desks are near, and you just want them to move desks. Try meeting them at the door and saying, I would like you to sit in this seat today. Yeah. Rather than in front of the whole class, saying, get up and move to that particular class. I mean, first of all, you destroyed all trust. That kid is never gonna bond with you. And what they're gonna do is retaliate by seizing the stage. And so, so that's perhaps when it's negative, do it in private as much as you can.
Oh, Sarah, I wish I would have had that meet him at the door tip about 10 years ago. That's, oh boy. could have used that one. That's a good one. Oh, what a fantastic half hour. And I jotted down some of the words that I kept hearing you guys say over and over. Expectations, practice. That one's often overlooked and so good. Relationships and community. So what great ideas as we think about classroom management, which is often a really icky topic. Thank you for being so positive about it and so helpful. And thank you for spending your time with us today. If you would like to connect to viewers, sorry, I should have a little segue there. Viewers, if you would like to connect with the Indiana Milken Network, please email indianamilkennetwork@gmail. Again, that's indianamilkennetwork@gmail.com, and they will be back in touch with you. Our next episode is making technology work in your classroom. Wow, that can go about 57 different ways. We can take technology to mean lots of things. So that'll be a fun conversation, I'm sure. So Ashley, Daphne, and Sarah, thank you so much for your time. And viewers, we appreciate you being here today.